Welcome back to the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. The race for U.S. Senate in Michigan is heating up. Already, Democratic State Senator Mallory McMorrow and Republican Mike Rogers are in the running to replace Senator Gary Peters. He vacates his seat next year. And this morning, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed declared he's also running for the seat. El-Sayed, who's running as a Democrat, previously was the head of the Department of Health and Human Services for Wayne County. And before that, he ran for governor in 2018 and lost in the primary to now Governor Whitmer. To talk now about why he's running, we have Dr. Abdul El-Sayed here. Dr. El-Sayed, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you so much. Always great to be with you.
So first and foremost, we got to get right to it. Why are you running for Senate?
Robin, I think I speak for so many Michiganders when I say that it just shouldn't be this hard to get by. And you look at the people who've exploited that pain to come to power, they've just made it worse. I mean, literally tanking the global economy so you can pass stock tips to your billionaire bros. I mean, that's what we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. right now. We're seeing the gutting of some of the most important things that government does. I mean, cancer research. People who will not survive cancer 10 years from now because that research doesn't get done. And I think we've got to step up and fight back. And, you know, when it comes to fighting, I got receipts. But it's not just about what you're fighting back against. It's about what you're fighting for. I've been on a long conversation with Michiganders that started even before I ran for governor in 2018. And what they tell me keeps them up at night has everything to do with an economy that just doesn't work for them. It's pricing them out, and they feel like their access to a job is slipping away. They're worried about their kids' schools. They're worried about whether or not they're going to have to take on medical debt to go see a doctor. And our job is to fight for those things. But that means that we've got to be honest about what's causing them. And too often I'm seeing people who try to triangulate so that their message is perfectly inoffensive. And then they think that they're going to make up with that with vibes. That's not what's going to work right now. I'm not afraid to articulate what I think the world ought to look like. And then I'm somebody who spent a lot of time in really complicated, complex government bureaucracies, making government work for people, delivering things like the elimination of medical debt for upwards of 300,000 people in Wayne County, putting glasses on kids' faces, 10,000 kids and counting, or making sure that you know what the air quality is like and that you can hold your community and polluters accountable for what they're doing to your air quality. Those are things that Michiganders need and deserve, and I think the time is right now to step up and fight for them.
Are you running as a Democratic Socialist?
No, but let me tell you, I don't love these labels. I think that the thing about labels, and I'll tell you, I'm a scientist by training, and one of the things you learn pretty quickly in science is that you need to use words that everybody understands. So when you say them, other people pick them up the same way you intended them. And the labels that we tend to use, I think, are unhelpful because everybody wants to build something under the label, right? Whether the person who used it or other people who want to demagogue. I'm somebody who's always been focused on people. When I trained as a doctor, the first set of questions that you learn to ask are, what's wrong and how can I help? And I'm really just focused on making sure that we can help. So I don't know what it means to say I believe that our economy should work for the fortunes of 350 million people in this country and not for the Fortune 500. I don't know what label stands under. I think we should be able to guarantee health insurance for everybody as a U.S. government in the richest, most powerful country in the world. I don't know what label you put on the idea that we should fight for clean air and clean water. Those are the things I'm about. And I want to be centering those folks that I got to meet and that I'll continue to get to meet throughout this campaign. And that's the work ahead of us. And I think if we're able to center those folks, then hopefully they'll give us their stake in democracy and we can go on and both fight for them and also build the kind of future they deserve.
It sounds like you plan to prioritize some of the same things that you prioritized in your bid for governor. You supported things like Medicare for all, guaranteed clean water, and tuition-free higher education. So if you're elected to be senator, are these the things then that are going to be at the top of your list? And what else?
You know, Robin, I appreciate you saying that because it's funny because when you lay that list out, like those should be conventional, common sense things that we should all be fighting for. Every single person elected to serve you should be fighting for those things. And it's crazy to me that we've bought into this idea that somehow those things are not possible in the richest, most powerful country in the history of the world. And instead, we're in a situation right now where folks tell us that we should be gutting government agencies and the things that they do, that it's the waste, fraud, and abuse. And notice the people telling you this are the folks who are the billionaires who've never actually had to work for the things they got. whether it's Donald Trump or Elon Musk, these are folks who got their own form of DEI, right? They've been daddy's entitled idiot their entire life. And the reality of all that is that they then get to come and tell us based on what they feel entitled to because their parents gave them the first check in their lives rather than having to work for it, what we need and deserve. And so to me, these issues, whether or not you can go see a doctor without taking on debt, whether or not the economy can secure you and your family based on one good job, whether or not you can take a big deep breath and know that what you're breathing doesn't hurt you more than it helps you. Like, these are obvious things. I want to see everybody fighting for them. And the fact that they're not, and the fact that the people who exploited our pain for cynicism are telling us that we can't have these things, that to me is the problem.
I mean, a lot of people want to be rich. They believe that they can become millionaires. They believe in the American dream. You're telling a slightly different story. What would you say to the people who don't want to pay a lot in taxes because they think they can become really successful on their own?
Yeah, Robin, I'm actually saying exactly that. I mean, if you look at where we are as a society, you've got these huge corporations that dominate in ways that really push out anybody who's an up-and-comer with a dollar and a dream, right? So they get these massive tax breaks, and you're left with what's left behind. Let's actually break down the tariffs. And look, I'd love to talk a little bit more about tariffs in a bit because I actually think there's a version of that can be helpful. But all of a sudden, right, there are these massive across-the-board tariffs that are like so classically Trumpian because they're ham-handed, they're self-serving, and they're chaotic. And then all of a sudden over the weekend, right, who gets to skirt around those tariffs? Companies like Microsoft, right? Companies like Apple. They're doing just fine, thank you, trillions of dollars. But you know who continues to have to worry about the future of their small business? Everybody who's relied on a Chinese supply chain, who now all of a sudden is in a situation where they can't actually import the things that they had worked so hard to be able to sell. To me, the vision for our economy is one where in this country, this is the best single place to build and scale a small business. That's how you make fortune. But here's the thing. Small businesses, right, they are owned in a local community. They serve a local community. That money, right, those leaders have to see their workers, and then that money gets spent back in the community. They benefit the community. But when you're talking about a publicly traded corporation that is succumbed to these incentives of financialization, the only goal that CEO has is to get some Wall Street speculator to think that their stock is going to do a little bit better 3 months from now. And so that completely divorces them from the communities that they work in, divorces them from their workers, divorces them from their customers. And so my vision is one where anybody with a dollar and a dream can build a great small business and build fortune for themselves and make those millions. I want you to do that. I just don't want these big corporations to stop you from doing that because they've got armies of lobbyists who can rewrite the rules for themselves and against you.
It sounds like you're echoing some of Senator Bernie Sanders' messaging when it comes to the power being too much in the hands of billionaires. Would you say that, are you seeing that messaging becoming more of a uniting force, especially given what we're seeing from Elon Musk, who is an unelected person who is making a lot of decisions right now about how people are going to be living their lives?
So I'm really proud that we earned the endorsement of Senator Sanders, in fact, today. But I'll tell you this, the thing that Senator Sanders and I have in common is that we're just looking at the situation that we see and calling it how we see it. And now you kind of wonder, why is it that too many politicians don't? And that's because he and I have something else in common, which is that we don't take money from corporate PACs. The reason that all of us can see the obvious, which is we probably should have guaranteed health care. We probably should have an economy that doesn't force people out or force them to pay so much because corporations are extracting for them. The reason that we're able to say that plainly is because we're not asking those same corporations who rewrite the rules to fund our campaigns. Instead, our campaigns are funded by everyday folks. In fact, folks can go to Abdul for Senate today if they want to support us. But I'll just say this. It's that ability to just call the system as we see it that allows us to sound so common sense. And I really wish that more politicians felt the same way. But the fact that too often they don't is why when these corporations call in for a favor or their lobbyists go visit them in DC, you end up getting public policy that seems to be so obviously working against the rest of us. And I'm just saying that, like, and Bernie's saying, maybe we shouldn't do politics that way. Maybe it'd be better if we just got about to working for working people.
Dr. El-Sayed, you've been the director of the health departments of Detroit and Wayne County. You've mentioned already you're a doctor, you're a scientist. What did you learn in those positions that you think has set you up well to be a senator? What were you seeing in that role?
Yeah, Robin, I really appreciate the question because I never intended to run for office. There are a lot of people in politics who dreamed of being a politician. That wasn't me. I dreamed of being a doctor. In fact, I wanted to be a surgeon. And then I realized that too many people get locked out of our healthcare system. And I was like, you know what? I think somebody should try and fix that. And that's what I've made my career about doing. I've worked in very complicated circumstances on the ground. And I learned three things working in public service. First, good leaders who want to deliver for their communities really can if they focus on the outcome. I had the privilege of working with County Executive Warren Evans, one of the best leaders in Wayne County. The guy's got a heart of gold. And what he said is, let's go deliver on some of these goals. And what I learned is that when you're able to work together around a common vision, you can make government work for people, right? And this idea that somehow all government needs to be destroyed would be like, if you're listening to your radio and it doesn't sound quite right, you got two choices. You can take the whole thing and slam it on the ground, or you can open it up, sort of think about how to fix it, and then go in and fix it. So that's what I've done in government, and I think we need a little bit more of that. Nobody's saying that government works perfectly. What we are saying is you can take government agencies and make them deliver for people if that's what your goal is. The second thing I've learned is that when you're willing to work with people who may not see eye to eye with you, you can get really good things done. And sometimes, right, they actually make it better. And I learned a lot about how to do that, collaborating with folks from all walks of life, whether they're folks who are working on the ground in the agencies that I led, or folks who are working on the opposite side of the aisle who might see things differently. How do we come to an agreement about servicing people? And the third, the most important, is that you have to center the public in public service. It is not about you. It is not about your politics. It is about the people you say you want to serve, what they're telling you that they need, and then you delivering on that. And that's exactly what we were able to do at the county.
This is The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. We're speaking with Dr. Abdul El-Sayed as he just announced his run for U.S. Senate this morning. Dr. El-Sayed, when you ran for governor against Governor Whitmer in 2018, you lost to her in a primary by 20 points. Why do you think that happened, and what have you learned from that attempt?
Well, I'll just say this. There was another guy in the primary as well. He's actually a sitting U.S. congressman, and he happened to have $10 million to spend on, what was ultimately a message that wasn't really his. But all of that is to say, I learned a lot about the work of politics. First, I learned that if you go out to folks who, people would tell you shouldn't support you, and you're willing to listen first and then articulate a vision that we can share together, you're going to get support from folks that otherwise we would have been told you couldn't. I learned that when you go to places like Flint or Detroit or places like Oscoda or Kalkaska, they're actually talking about the same things. But, we live in a society where folks don't want those people talking to each other, right? That'd be dangerous. And so we have an opportunity to unite those voices in this race. The second is that it's not really about a Democratic primary, right? My biggest issue right now is about a governing vision that leverages people's pain into cynicism. That's what we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. And our job isn't to meet that same cynicism with a different kind of cynicism. Our job is to meet that cynicism with hope. I think people are sick and tired of the fighting. And look, when you've got a bully on the playground, sometimes you got to face up the bully, you got to fight him. But the question isn't just, can you beat the bully, right? The question is, can you beat the bully so that we can all get about to doing the things we all want to do, right? And I think we need somebody who can both take the fight on, but also can build from the wreckage of what Trump and Musk are leaving behind. And so my hope is to continue the conversation I got to share with folks across the state, to continue to meet them in their living rooms, in their VFW halls, in their union halls, continue to listen and to empathize, and to deliver on the things that they need.
Okay, when you say, can we beat the bully, you're obviously talking about President Trump. We have to acknowledge that Democrats are wandering around a bit in the wilderness right now. They're wondering whether they should be fighting President Trump or working with him. You mentioned earlier that you want to discuss Trump's tariffs. What do you think Democrats should be doing right now? What are some concrete things?
Yeah, I mean, look, I moved around a lot when I was a little kid, and my name is Abdul, as people well know. And when your name is Abdul and you move to a new school, that means that people are going to pick on you. And I learned pretty early when I was a kid that if you let somebody take your lunch once, you're not going to eat lunch. So I decided I'm never, ever, ever not going to let somebody I'm never going to let somebody take my lunch. And you have to step up and fight back. But the thing about it is, we're not fighting to fight. This is not the point. People hate the fact that our politics just feels like a very big fight. But when you see somebody who is creating the kind of injustice, when they're disappearing people off the street with no recourse to the Constitution, when they're literally tanking the global economy so they can pass a stock tip to their billionaire friends, you've got to stand up and you've got to fight back. And I think sometimes leaders make the mistake that they think that their job is just about the nuts and bolts of being a legislator. But when people elect you to represent them, there's a leadership component to that. And political leadership is bigger than what you can do as a sitting congressperson or sitting senator. It's about what you represent, about what people are telling you and what the world ought to be. And I think we need a bit more of that. And the last point I'll make on this question is this. You got to know what you're going to fight for. And the hard part about it is, too often you hear this thing about Democrats looking for a message. If that message isn't on your heart, right, it's not in your bones, then I don't know where you're looking, because you should have it in you. And then you should be willing to say the thing you think. And so too often people triangulate to a least common denominator message that is perfectly inoffensive to everybody. And then they do this thing of being coached to say it enthusiastically. So if you're saying nothing enthusiastically, you look ridiculous. And unfortunately, too often, that's been the situation with Democrats. Say what you believe, say it forcefully, and guess what? That's leadership. That's what it takes. It takes being willing to listen to people, understand what they want, and then say it and manifest it in the world.
I mean, this all speaks to the identity crisis that the Democrats are having. I mean, some say the party should stray from social issues and focus on material ones like healthcare and jobs. Longtime Democratic strategist Paul Begala recently told NPR that Democrats need to change.
I think we just got to focus on folks whose names are stitched above the pocket of their shirt, not those whose pronouns are typed at the bottom of their emails.
Do you think Democrats need to, I see you shaking your head, do you think they need to focus less on social and cultural issues and more on economic ones?
I'm just saying, why can't you do both? Because here's the thing, whether your name isn't, your pronouns in the bottom of your email or your name is stitched above your shirt, you still need healthcare. You still want to make sure that you can keep your job and that job will be enough to pay for the roof over your head and the car that you need to get to work and the things you want to do that are nice for your kids. So I'm just like, it's odd to me that we are playing in this same game of pitting groups of people against each other, right? The whole point was that we were supposed to work toward a government that empowered you, regardless of who you are. And that's what I'm about. So like, I don't, as someone who trained as a doctor, I could tell you that on the inside, we all kind of look the same. And too often when things go wrong on the inside, too many people, whether they have their name stitched over their shirt or their pronouns in their email, feel locked out of the healthcare system or have to take on medical debt. So what I'm focused on are those things that bring us together, those consensus issues that all of us need in our lives. And a reminder that we're all best when we're living in community and looking each other eye to eye. And look, one of the things I love about your show is that radios are one of the unique, consistent experiences that we can kind of have together. And we have so few of those. And I just want to be clear about this, because when I talk about corporations and our economy, sometimes we miss all of the ways that they've devastated us. And all of us, right? Almost everybody listening right now probably has an item in their pocket, right? That trillion-dollar corporations have spent billions of dollars to make sure you look at more often than you'd like. And I want you to think about what gets displaced from that, right? It's the conversations you would otherwise share with your loved ones or your kids. And I can tell you as a father of two kids, right? I hate when I find myself reaching for my phone when I got that precious time that's with them. And they see that. And then guess what happens? Then they start reaching for their phone. And I think we're suffering through these epidemics of mental illness in large part because of a human-created crisis on the back end of huge corporations. Now, we don't talk about it like that, but we probably should. And then when you come to regulate them, right? Too often, a lot of the folks serving in the U.S. Congress or the Senate don't understand how they work, or they're not willing to say anything about it because guess what? those same corporations know how to make sure that those folks get reelected so long as they stay quiet. I'm not willing to do that. I don't want my kids' eyeballs and eardrums being monetized by huge corporations that don't need any more money. I'm a lot more interested in being able to sit around the dinner table and talk to them, because that's what makes being human so beautiful.
Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is a candidate for U.S. Senate. Dr. El-Sayed, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Robin, thank you so much for having me. As always, great conversation.
You can listen to our interview with another candidate, Mallory McMorrow, on WDET.org. We've reached out to Mike Rogers. We're still waiting to hear back from his team. Coming up, a program is landing in Wayne County that could help make a dent in Black maternal mortality and Detroit's high child poverty rate. And we want to hear from you. Are you pregnant or have you been? What was your healthcare experience like? The number is 313-577-1019. This is the Metro on WDET. Stay with us.